My guest today is John Crickett, software engineer, content creator, and the mind behind 100 coding challenges where developers build real software like Redis or port scanners or QR codes from scratch. John's also one of the top voices in the UK for software engineering. And today I want to talk about what AI is really doing to the craft of software development, why coding challenges still matter more than ever. And I want to dig into an interesting experience I had with AI and software interviews that I just completed recently and get John's opinion on this. Welcome to the show, John.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for having me on. And wow, that sounds like a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Where should we start?
I want to start with this, man. So I recently left my job as a quote unquote AI engineer at a very small startup, really fast paced startup, building a platform for music record labels to find TikTok creators, right? Really
Okay.
cool place. And we were hiring to find my replacement. And we allowed AI in the interview, right? It was a pretty typical coding challenge interview, front end focused, building out something and in front of us and talking through it. What happened though was that two people that we caught so far cheated. And
Okay.
I wrote about this experience on LinkedIn and I got thrashed in the comments from people saying basically that you should be able to use AI for every aspect of your interview, and you shouldn't need to have basically you shouldn't need to really know any code at all. And I'm really curious, like what the if you were doing an interview nowadays, would you let people use AI? And if so, why or why not?
So I think the short answer to that is no. I wouldn't
Okay.
let people use AI at all in an interview these days. And the reason for that is my preferred interview style is based on competencies, based on having a conversation. I want to get to
Hmm.
know them, get to know how they think, get to know what their understanding of or what their views of how to develop software well are. Then I want to talk through some of the projects they've done. And I don't think AI is going to help them with any of that. They should know the projects they've done. They should know about decisions they made. They should be able to explain the reasoning behind what they did. I don't see AI helping with that. Now, if I chose to do a coding interview,
Hmm.
then perhaps I would, because again, it's a viable tool. And I guess I'd rather say to people, use AI in front of me and then talk me through how you've used it and see how they use it. But either way, if it was a take-home test, I'd probably be fine with that. But I would still then want to have a follow-up and say, well, cool, you've done it this way.
Hmm.
You've chosen this data structure. You've chosen to break the code like this. What was the reason you choose to implement these kind of tests, or you didn't choose to test this? So every part of it, I don't see that AI would necessarily help them do any better or make them do any worse. It would all be about what were the choices they made? Why did they make those choices? And do they understand?
Yeah, I think that was the scariest part is that we were asking some conceptual questions and they would give these textbook answers and they actually sounded pretty good. But once we just dug just a little bit deeper and thought, well, why would you do this versus this? And then it became more obvious that something was off. They couldn't really back up their opinions. And the really interesting and also kind of terrifying part to me was that there was tons of code generated on the screen from the AI tool and say, how does this work? What happens if you do this? Nothing. I don't know. I'm like, well, this is a little scary because how'd you get here, first of all? And if you really are working, then how are you writing code and not even questioning even anything at all? Is it just based on, is this just working? What do you think like this kind of top down push to just use AI to be more quote unquote productive is doing to software in general? Like where do you see this going in the next few years?
I think that this push for it is just creating more technical debt faster. I mean, when we build software, it's either valueless or it has some value. By valueless, I mean nobody uses it, nobody gets any value from it, doesn't
Hmm.
generate any revenue for the business. So that's what I would call greenfield software. It has no users, nobody's using it, nobody's getting value. Now, if you produce that quicker and you find a product market fit, maybe you've got a productivity gain from AI. But once you've got users, you've got to maintain it. You've got to support it. You've got to keep giving them the feature they find valuable,
Hmm.
or they'll stop using it. They'll go and pay for a different product. And they want stability. They want it to keep working. So you have got to better maintain that and deploy it and update it and ship new features and support it and keep it secure. And all those things take a lot of discipline. You need to better look at what you've done and say, right, if we're going to add this new feature, that requires this change here, here, and here.
Mm-hmm.
And when we deploy it, we're going to need something different in our database, so we've got to manage that. All these things require a much bigger understanding of the context of your software than a lot of the AI tools have. And if the tool doesn't have it, and you don't have it because you haven't studied it,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to build this? How are you going to have all these little things? So again, it's fine vibe coding a little couple of thousand line app. Maybe you can do that brilliantly, but take something that's a million lines, lots of different features all spread all over the place. And the complexity of multiple different services. If you haven't got that understanding, and AI surely doesn't at the moment, how are you going to know that you can deploy it and ship it and test it? How are you going to know that you can support that? The key question I think is missing is we are talking more and more about this AI bubble.
Yes.
You start looking at the circular economy around AI. What happens if that tool that you use is not available in 6 or 12 months' time? Or what happens if it is available, but it costs 10 times as much as now? How are you going to work? What are you going to do without it? So if you don't understand your code, if you don't have the documentation, you don't know how it works, you're setting yourselves up for a lot of technical debt in 1 or 2 years if something changes there and goes in a different direction.
I've been looking into this a bit, and that this is what I think should scare more people. If I'm being honest, I don't want to be some doom and gloomer, but the fact that OpenAI is losing so much money by offering their service, I think it's like $7 they're losing for every $1 of revenue or something like that. And the fact that they're basically being funded by NVIDIA essentially is invested in them, but part of the investment requires that they buy more NVIDIA chips, and this circular deals that are going on. And you think, where does the profit come in if they're so far behind? And then you see things like them releasing erotic chatbots, and I'm thinking, this doesn't seem like I don't know. I don't see where this ends up, or maybe it ends up in a place like this where the price becomes so astronomical that we ended up saying, okay, well, maybe we can't use these tools. Maybe only giant corporations can, and we can't just depend on Cursor or Claude to just go out and like write 10,000 lines of code at a time, So that's definitely something I'm thinking about.
I love Bloomberg's headline on that. Their pivot to porn.
Yeah. I think it kind of shocked everybody. Like, oh, this is what you're building now. And I'm like, there are a lot of lonely guys out there that might pay for these chatbots. Will it make $1 trillion business? I'm not convinced. Even if they dominated the entire adult industry, I think they still would have a huge shortfall in that case.
Well, again, you look at OpenAI, what's the most recent valuation? Is it 500 billion? To justify that, they're going to have to hit a price earnings of what, 30 to 50?
Oh my God.
That would be a turnover bigger than any company in the world.
Yeah.
For something that they're currently selling for $20 a month.
Yeah.
I don't see how the math works. A lot of people paying $20 a month.
Yeah.
Probably more people than
we have on the planet.
So the price has got to go up. Now, you tell me that people will justify it as it's a productivity gain. But if it's a productivity gain at the moment at $20, fine. What when that's $200? What if it's $2,000? At what point does that productivity gain not go and you're back to employing people because they're more productive? And particularly if you employ people offshore in a lower cost economy.
Yeah.
It's not really going to stack up. And the other thing that we haven't really talked about properly as a society is how many of these AI things depend on people who are getting $1 or $2 an hour in Africa and other third world countries that are doing the training data for this. How is that going to scale? How are they going to keep funding that?
That's very good points. And I feel like these are really missing from the dialogue, because all people really like to write about is how it's going to replace software engineers or how you're 10x more productive, but eventually the bill is going to come. Which leads me to, I know a lot of more junior, earlier career people are listening to this, and they're feeling the pressure to use AI too. If you were earlier in your career, or if you were talking to a junior person and they're like, well, how do I use AI? Because, how should they be using it in your opinion? Or should they use it at all?
Well, there's two sides of that. I think you should not be using AI for any skill that you're trying to learn. I'm very firmly a believer in learn by doing. So you can't learn to paint by watching videos about painting. You can't learn to swim by watching somebody swim or reading a book. You can't learn to code by watching a video about somebody coding and reading a book. You have to actually do it. If you have AI do it for you, you're not doing it. So you need to do it. You need to build up that muscle memory. So I don't think you should use it for any skill that you're trying to learn. Beyond that, though, you can use it to ask questions, to get ideas,
Mm.
to iterate on things. So by all means, write some code and then dump that code into it and say, why doesn't this work? What might I have missed?
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to do something like this. Here's my Python. I want to translate that to Go. What were the Go language features I would use?
Mm-hmm.
So use it as something that can point you in the right direction. Don't totally trust it, because as I've demonstrated with some experiments I'm doing recently with using it for Gleam, Gleam is very fast as a new language, very changing quite rapidly. Clearly the training data is a bit out of date, so some of the answers it gives me are no longer correct.
Mm-hmm.
But asking it some questions like, what is the equivalent of this in Gleam? Really useful for pointing you off in directions that you might not easily find by having used a traditional web search. So I would ask it questions and use it to help you find things, help you figure out those unknown unknowns. Don't have it write the code for you, because you're not going to learn to code. And contrary to what a lot of AI tech bros will tell you,
Mm-hmm.
software engineering is not going away anytime soon. And nor is coding. You need to be able to understand the code that we're building. You need to be able to understand what it does. And somebody's going to have to build this stuff that teaches it to use new frameworks, the new libraries. You know, let's assume that all the finances work out. It's still here in 10 years' time. It's still building.
Sure.
There will always be training data needed. There will always be that first instance of using this new library. There'll be people that need to build the libraries that AI won't be able to build because they're doing something new that doesn't exist. So this is not a skill that's going away. Maybe we'll evolve and we'll have a slightly higher level position, but you know, software engineering isn't just coding. It's getting the requirements. It's communicating with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's negotiating what we do. It's figuring out that wider context. All those things are still going to be required. So maybe it will like slightly higher level. But again, I don't see that being fully true, because one of the big problems we've always had with software engineering is requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And how you capture them in a natural language. You know, English is, picking English because I speak English. It's my native language.
Sure.
It's hideously imprecise, and our understanding of it is even worse. You know, say DevOps to a bunch of software engineers and we can argue what it actually
Oh my
means for
God,
several
yeah.
hours.
For sure.
So you can't just like a requirement say, you must do DevOps in this to AI, because does it have the same understanding of that as we do? And again, we face all this when we're doing humans, but we're going to need to be more precise. So I see there's still being a lot of challenges, still being a lot of engineering, should we say, that needs to be done, even if we stop writing the code, which I don't think we will. So anyone coming into it, learn software engineering, learn to code, use AI as a kind of tutor, maybe it's a more powerful search. And when you get better, when you get competent writing the code, you can then maybe use it to generate some of the code for you, so you can learn some of the different skills. But you need to build that muscle memory. You need to get those reps in to get used to it first.
I'm glad you said that, because I've been kind of doubting my own self on this and what I've been teaching students, because I've leaned more towards like, don't use it yet, because I see what happens when people do. They really cheat themselves out of learning, and then they end up being essentially prompt engineers. And as you know, no one's hiring for prompt engineers. People are hiring for software engineers, however. And oddly enough, counterintuitively, there's more open positions now than there were at the beginning of the year, according to a lot of the job sets I've read. I'm like, this is very interesting to me.
And if we trust the tech bros, or if you want to question the tech bros that say that software engineers will get replaced, AI will allow one-person billion-dollar businesses, they've been saying that for 2 years.
Yeah.
Can you name me one-person billion-dollar business? Or even one-person business that's doing 10 million ARR? I haven't heard of any, and I'm sure that the press love hyping that.
They would love it.
Sure, if there was one, it would be all over TechCrunch. It would be all over the news. Everyone would be talking about it. Not least because the AI companies would make damn sure we heard about it.
Yeah, that's right.
To prove their point.
I'd also say look at OpenAI's hire. The people, I'm like, it's always funny to me. People are like, oh, it's going to replace everybody. I'm like, well, the people making the technology are like actively hiring software developers at a wild rate, at astronomical salaries. So I'm like, if they haven't figured it out yet, I don't know if your 10-person startup has either. But hey, what do I know?
And Anthropic until very recently said, do not use AI in the interview as well, or in your application.
That's right. I read that. Yeah. Hilarious. Oh, man, dude. John's one of these people that I follow, and I like that he has measured common sense advice and is a voice of reason against a sea of hype out there nowadays. I really appreciate what you write and what you do on YouTube and with coding challenges. So thanks for
Brian.
being on the show today, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.